Hello, everyone. Good afternoon to everyone in Melbourne, and also good morning to our guest speaker. Today we have a talk with Professor Dick den Hertog, who is a professor of operation research at the University of Amsterdam. His research interest covers various fields in prescriptive analytics, in particular linear and nonlinear optimization. In recent years, his main focus has been on robust optimization, and recently he has started research on optimization with machine learning. He is also active in applying the theory in real life, and some of those applications he's going to present today in his talk. And he received the INFORMS Franz Edelman Award twice in 2013 for his research on optimal flood protection, and in 2021 for his research on optimizing the food supply chain for the UN World Food Program. Currently, he's doing research to develop better optimization models and techniques for cancer treatment, together with researcher from Harvard Medical School and Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston. And he's involved in research to optimize the location of a healthcare facility in Timor-Leste and Vietnam, together with World Bank. He has been a visiting professor at MIT for several years, and he is the Science to Impact director of the Analytics for a Better World Institute, which he co-founded in 2022. And quite the topic of his presentation is same analytics for a better world. Thanks again, Dick, and over to you.
Thanks, Hadi, for the kind and nice introduction, and also for the invitation to give this presentation here.
No problem.
So, by the way, for me, it would be very nice if it's possible for you to that I see faces. So if you are willing and able to use your camera such that I can see you, that is that's maybe good for me, because it's really boring to talk to a screen. So when I see the faces, it's better. And also, if you have questions, please interrupt me. So let's keep it very informal. So also questions in between are welcome. Okay, so what I would like to do is to talk about analytics for a better world. So in fact, several years ago, I started to work on optimization problems, analytics problems for, let us say, the Sustainable Development Goals. And today I would like to present two of those applications, I think with high impact. First, I would like to tell you how I decided to work on these type of problems. And in fact, there are two books that are important for this decision. And the first book that is important that I read already many years ago is this book, Excellence Without a Soul, written by a former dean, Harry Lewis. And he was he was writing down that, in fact, if you look at what we our teaching educational programs at universities, and especially he was talking about Harvard University, he was criticizing that, and he also made a plea for adding more teaching that has more purpose and more meaning. So I started to do more societal relevant projects, and also to include that in my teaching. And a second book, maybe you know that's a book, Weapons of Mass Destruction by Katie O'Neill. So that book is about the negative side of data science. Well, I think that's a very important book, very good book also, but there's also another side of the coin. And that's maybe not that well treated in the book. In fact, it's the last chapter of the book, but nobody comes so far. Normally speaking, people stop at the first half of the book. And so then I realized, there are also many applications where data science, where analytics can have a very positive impact. So together with my brother in crime, Dimitris Petsimas, he influenced me a lot. We started the Analytics for a Better World movement. And in January 2022, we initiated the Analytics for a Better World Institute. So it's about applying analytics and especially optimization techniques for the Sustainable Development Goals, but also developing new methods when they are needed. And today I would like to describe two of those cases, two Analytics for a Better World cases. The first is about optimizing food supply chain for the World Food Programme. And the second one is optimizing hospital locations in Timor-Leste, Vietnam, but now we also did it for Nepal and for other countries. So in fact, in the announcement, I also announced that I will talk about the ocean cleanup. I will certainly do that. Also at the end of my talk, I will also spend a few minutes on the application for the ocean cleanup. And when time permits, I will also talk about more precisely what the ABW Research Institute is. But let us start with the first application, optimizing the food supply chain for the World Food Programme, which has to do, of course, with the second SDG, Sustainable Development Goal, Zero Hunger. So that was a project, an application that won the Franz Edelman Award. Hadi already indicated that. And so we did that together with the World Food Programme. And this project, this application was led by my colleague. At that time, I was working for the University of Tilburg University. And Hein Fleuren was in fact the leader of this project. Okay, so first I would like to introduce the World Food Programme. This is the hunger map of 2020. So here you see the colors, and so red colors means a high percentage of people that suffer from undernourishment. So typically you see here the countries, also a few countries in Europe. And so in total, there are in about 840 million people that suffer from undernourishment, that suffer from hunger. So the World Food Programme tries to help those people, and the point is there is enough food in the world. So basically, what we have is a transportation issue, and the World Food Programme is supporting 80 million of the 820 or 840 million people that are in hunger. So that's a lot of people, and they ship every year 4 million metric tons of food to those that are in hunger. And in fact, my colleague Hein Fleuren always tells the following story. So what is exactly 4 million tons? Well, if you have a line of trucks from Amsterdam to Rome, Rome is the headquarters of Italy. So a line of trucks from Amsterdam to Rome and back to Amsterdam and then again to Rome. So 3 times Amsterdam, Rome, a line full of trucks, and all those trucks are full of food. That's the amount of food that they transport every year. If you don't know the distances in Europe, I have another example from the United States. So from Boston to Chicago, back to Boston, and then again to Chicago. And so that's full of a line of trucks full of food. That is in fact the amount of food that they ship every year. Okay, so now I would like to show you the first minutes of the video that we made for the Franz Edelman Award, because I think that tells a lot about the logistics and the complexity of the logistics of the World Food Programme.
In 2019, nearly 690 million people regularly went to bed hungry. 1 in 11 people did not have access to enough food. 2 billion people cannot afford a nutritious diet. Today, because of COVID, these figures are even higher. Conflict, climate change and COVID-19 have created the greatest humanitarian challenge since the Second World War. A record 235 million people will need humanitarian assistance and protection in 2021, a near 40% increase on 2020, which is almost entirely due to the compounding effects of COVID-19. One of the agencies responding to these humanitarian needs is the United Nations World Food Programme, WFP. When it comes to delivering food assistance in emergencies, improving nutrition and building resilience in communities, WFP leads the way, saving lives and changing lives. For its efforts to combat hunger, for its contribution to bettering conditions for peace in conflict-affected areas, and for acting as a driving force in efforts to prevent the use of hunger as a weapon of war and conflict, WFP was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 2020. To assist nearly 100 million people in over 80 countries, WFP operates over 5,000 trucks, 30 ships and nearly 100 planes every day, delivering food and other assistance to those in most need, wherever they are. In 2020, WFP transferred more than 4 million metric tons of food and $2 billion in cash-based transfers to beneficiaries.
Okay, so that is about the logistics of the World Food Programme. And so, in fact, what we did is in this project, we used optimization to optimize the food supply chain for the World Food Programme. And that led to the fact that now they can feed millions more people. And I will explain how we did that. So, in fact, I think the core of the... Yeah. There's a question, I think.
Hear it.
Yeah. Oh, no question. Okay. So in fact, I think the core element of the success of this project is the following. So when, for example, there's hunger in a certain region, for example, in Syria or in Yemen, then in fact the World Food Programme has the following puzzle. So the question is, what should be the daily meal, the diet that we provide those people? What should be in the daily meal? Should it be rice, and how much rice? Should it be oil, beans, or other ingredients? And the composition of the food basket, the composition of the daily meal should be such that all kinds of nutritional requirements are satisfied. So the amount of fat, the amount of vitamin, the amount of protein, the amount of, you name it. So there are many requirements for that. So that is one side of the puzzle. And then the next question is, we have to purchase those ingredients somewhere. That could be locally, but since there is hunger, that's not possible always. So we also have to purchase them internationally. And we have to do it in the cheapest way as possible. So where to purchase those ingredients, how to transport it to the region where the beneficiaries are. And so that's in fact one problem interconnected to each other. So it's in fact talking about optimization. It's a diet problem combined with a multi-commodity in cost flow problem. So what should be the ingredients of the daily meal? And also where to purchase and how to transport it. So that's one big problem. And well, we built a linear optimization model for that. And that can then be used to decide on those questions. So for example, in Syria, that's one of the first applications that we did together with the World Food Programme at that time. So that was in 2016, I think. Suppose we have, let's say, all kinds of refugee camps, and they are in hunger, those people, millions of people. And then the first question is, what should be the food baskets? What should be in the food baskets? And then secondly, where to purchase them? And so that could also be, of course, in other regions in the world, United States or in Europe, where to purchase them, how to transport it to the harbors, for example, and then to the warehouses, and from the warehouses to the beneficiary camps. So the transportation scheme. So that's one big problem integrated. Okay, so again, the diet model and the multi-commodity min cost flow problem. So basically, and this is the core of the model, and I would like to go into a little bit more detail. So we have a set of suppliers, a set of ports, warehouses, beneficiary camps, commodities. The commodities are, for example, fats, vitamin, different vitamins, protein, and so on. Sorry, commodities are the ingredients, the maize, the beans, and so on. And then nutrients are the vitamin A, B, C, and so on. And then we have parameters, of course, the demand, the number of beneficiaries at the nodes, and the handling cost. We have parameters on the purchasing cost, the transportation cost. We have also data on the nutritional requirements, on the nutritional values per kilogram of the commodities. And so, for example, the beans, how much vitamin A or B does it contain per kilogram? And then we have the variables, the flow variables. So Fijk, so that is the amount of commodity K in kilogram that is transported from node I to J. And we're talking about commodity K here. And RK is the amount in the daily meal in the basket. So in fact, this is the core of the model. It's rather simple. I think we can explain it, and that's also what we do to the first year's bachelor students. But this is really the core of the model. So we minimize cost, so purchasing cost. We minimize transportation plus the transportation cost and the purchasing cost. So the three categories. We have flow conservation, and so that means that the flow in a node equals the outflow. All beneficiaries should receive a food basket. So this is this effect, and these are the diet constraints, namely that we should satisfy the nutritional requirements. And of course, the variables should be non-negative. So these are this is the core of the model. So linear optimization, nothing difficult with that. Of course, there are several simplified models, so there are several extensions. So we also have multi-period and seasonal effects we would like to include in that. We have different beneficiary types. So the effect requirements for adults or children or pregnant women are different. So we make a distinction between those. We have different daily meals for locations sometimes. And we would also like to include cash-based transfers and vouchers and so on. Because if it's possible to buy it on the local markets, then the World Group give those people vouchers, for example, to buy it on the local markets. That's such that the local market is not spoiled. And we have donor restrictions. We have restrictions on the palatability of the daily meal. For example, that the total oil and fat should be between a lower bound and an upper bound, and so on and so on. So these are extensions in the model, but the basic model is, let's say, this simplified model. Okay, well, this is embedded in a software tool, Optimus, that's developed by the World Food Programme. They now have a large group of data scientists and operations researchers that are doing constantly these type of applications. And they built a tool, Optimus. So you have to fit in a lot of data about shipping, about nutrition, about a lot of data. And then we have the optimization engine. And then you can generate optimal plans for that. Well, one of the first projects that we did was for Iraq. That was a relatively small project, small application. It was only for 500,000 beneficiaries per month. With the so we compared it what they found, just what they did, what they do normally, and with our optimization, and we found a saving of 17%, which means that in fact, in that case, 85,000 more people could be fed because of that. We also did it for Syria. That's a bigger application, in total 4 million people, and there we could also save a lot of cost. In fact, 25% of the cost. So that means that in fact 1 million more people could be fed, because the World Food Programme can only help, let us say, 80 million people per year. And that's because they don't have more money. If they have more money, they can help more people. So this was in Syria. This was also a big success, and later we also applied it to the El Nino crisis several years ago. And here you see the sourcing strategy. So from the European Union, nutri butter and so on. White maize from Mexico, also from Argentina, and so on. So this tool box with optimization in it is now used for every new operation, and because of that, they can now support millions more people. And I would like to again show you a short part of this video.
In 2019, nearly 690 million people regularly went
last year.
In South Sudan, the world's youngest nation, 70% of the population need humanitarian assistance. Following years of conflict, violence, and natural disasters, over 7 million people are in urgent need of food assistance this year. It is therefore not surprising that WFP has one of its biggest operations in South Sudan, providing food and cash-based transfers to prevent famine, provide school meals, and implement nutrition and livelihood programs. To ensure that people do not go to sleep with an empty stomach, we need to optimize our limited resources. South Sudan is also one of the most complex operating environments in the world. They say WFP staff working here are in WFP University. As a landlocked country, we use 3 corridors to move over 300,000 tons of food into South Sudan each year. During the rainy season, most of the country is inaccessible via road, often for more than 6 months. To ensure we get food to the millions of people in the most remote locations, we pre-position food in hundreds of locations and use a wide array of delivery modalities to reach them, including trucks, barges and boats, all-terrain vehicles, and even airdrops as a last resort. This operational complexity provides many opportunities for optimization. We want to share with you 2 ways in which we use analytics to do this. A, by redesigning the downstream delivery network to reduce costly airdrops, and B, by determining and implementing an optimal corridor allocation.
Air deliveries cost up to 7 times as much as road or river deliveries. We therefore use airdrops only as a last resort when security or poor infrastructure hinder our access. Using the data and visibility approach described by my colleague earlier, we combine various datasets, including geospatial data, road networks and the usability throughout different seasons, weather patterns, food assistance requirements, population movements, security and access constraints, and river navigability. We then analyze this data, visualize it to facilitate discussion, and determine the operational plan that tells us the timing, the quantity, the commodity, the delivery modality, and the location. This innovative approach not only ensures that our beneficiaries receive a full food basket without delays throughout the year, even when the commercial sector stops, but has also halved airdrops since 2018. Given the operational plan for downstream deliveries, we determine the optimal upstream plan. To do this, we use Optimus. We feed it with food requirements from the downstream operational plan, supply chain costs, food supply availability, and donor constraints, amongst others. From this, we derive the optimal sourcing and delivery plan that helps us understand how much food has to be bought, where and when, and the corridors we will use to deliver. In conclusion, here in South Sudan, analytics help us to improve our operations and better help the people we serve. It has enabled us save lives, save costs, open up new transport options, and engage better with our donors.
Okay, so that is one of the applications of Optimus, the optimization toolbox in Sudan. Okay, so if you would like to read more about these applications, here are 2 papers that we wrote, and here you can find the video of the Franz Edelman Award that we made for the Franz Edelman Award. So before I go to the next application, I would like to see if there are questions about this application.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
In your model, you mentioned, for example, for those Iraq example or Syria that you mentioned, you have 500K beneficiary or 4 million beneficiary. So your model have variables for each beneficiary, or how do you summarize them?
Okay, I see. Yeah. No, it's not for every beneficiary, so it's a fact. So we have beneficiary camps, and we have the number of beneficiaries at that camp. So normally speaking, yeah, there are 10,000 and 100,000 people, for example. So the final we deliver it at in this case the beneficiary camps.
And the number of beneficiaries in each camp varies camps by camp, or they are as a okay.
So in fact, for example, in Syria, in this case, there were in fact several beneficiary camps, and the number of people are different in those camps.
Thanks. And Peter has a question.
Better unmute myself. So the simple model you showed us was a linear program. Is the final model also a linear program, or is it mixed linear program? Still linear.
Yeah, it's linear, but indeed there are integer variables in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So because it happens to be that you don't need to solve it as a MIP, it just always it's okay.
Yeah. So finally we need a MIP solver to solve it.
Okay. So it is a MIP in the end.
Yes. Linear problems.
Sorry.
With continuous and integer variables. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
And there are large problems, but let's say below the 1 million variables. Yeah.
And can I ask another question?
Yes.
So you mentioned some extension for the model, different types of beneficiary or some other things. Have you addressed those extension, or do you think if you wanted to look at these different extensions, your model is no longer linear?
Oh, no. So all these extensions are also in the model, in the final model.
Okay,
but
so consider them
if I
already.
show you the model, then you know it's a mess. So therefore, I think this is the the heart of the model, and this is just not so. They are important, but I think for the model not that important. But those are included, but some of them lead to integer variables.
All right. Okay.
That's the question by Peter. Yeah. More questions? If not, then I go to the second application, and that's about hospital location optimization in Timor-Leste, and that has to do, of course, with the third SDG, good health and well-being, and we did it together with the World Bank, but also later other applications in Vietnam and Nepal and Armenia. We did it together with the World Health Organization, with the Red Cross and AMREF. But we started this business in Timor-Leste with the World Bank. So this was the team from the World Bank, from the University of Amsterdam, and from Tilburg University. So this is about Timor-Leste, close to Australia. So that's a country that was formerly also part of Indonesia, became independent in 2002. It's a rather poor country. In fact, accessibility to healthcare is very important, and also it's one of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals that, let's say, 95% of the people have access to primary healthcare, let's say within 5 kilometers or so. So accessibility is really very important to primary healthcare. Yeah, there is a direct link between the distance that patients have to travel and also the reduction of illness and suffering in the country. So if you talk about Timor-Leste, then in fact 1/4 of the households are more than 2 hours walk away from their nearest primary facility. So, and that was the aim, first of all, to calculate what is the percentage of the population that has no access to primary health care within, let's say, 5 kilometers. And then the next question is where to locate new healthcare facilities, hospitals, but hospitals not in our sense, but more primary healthcare centers. Where should we locate them, and how many do we need to reach the goal, namely 95% of the people have access to a primary healthcare center within 5 kilometers. Well, the road infrastructure there is not as what we have in our countries. So therefore, we base all the calculations on just walking. And again, so this is the question. We would like to maximize the number of people that can reach a hospital within 5 kilometers travel distance. But the final goal is to look how many and where to locate new healthcare facilities, primary healthcare facilities, such that, for example, 95% of the people have access to such a healthcare facility. Well, we need a lot of data, of course, data about the existing facility locations, the potential locations, data on the roads network, the population data. So a lot of data that we use in this for this application and projects. And that's sometimes a problem because yeah, there is what's called OpenStreetMap for the roads, network, but that is not complete. So for Timor-Leste was also another digital roadmap. So what we did is we also combined those two, and that made a much stronger network. But that was not easy. But I skipped the details. That was already a project in itself to do that. But I skipped the details. Okay, so finally, talking about, let's say, optimization. The problem that you have to solve, if you have connected all that data, is an uncapacitated facility location model. So for Timor-Leste, we had in total 15,000 possible locations, 40,000 households or combinations of households. So we used a standard, the standard formulation for facility location for this, and we used Biography to solve it, and it was less than 1 minute to do that. So in fact, we used the formulation, and that's already goes back to 1974, which is a very efficient formulation. I will explain why that is. So we have a set of households with a set of potential hospital sites. The first M are the existing sites. VI is the number of people in a household or a cluster of households. We have, of course, data on the distance between the household and the hospital facility. Location J, the maximum travel distance, and also the number of additional hospitals that we are allowed to add. And then we have two variables. The first variable is about whether a hospital is opened or not. And the second variable is whether the household I is covered, is served by at least one hospital that is within 5 kilometers. So this is a very efficient formulation because we only need variables that depend on one index and not index I and J. So since the number of postal locations is in the thousands, and also for the households, if we have a variable where we have both I and J, then we would already have 600 million, 15,000 times 40,000 variables. So that would be difficult. But fortunately, in this formulation, that already goes back to 1974, we can avoid that, and we only have variables with one index. So this is in fact to maximize the number of people that are within, let's say, 5 kilometers distance to a hospital. These hospitals are already opened, the first M. These are the additional hospitals, that's number of hospitals that we may open, P, new hospitals. And this is the constraint that tells me, well, if there is a hospital opened closer than S kilometers, let's say 5 kilometers, then set I can become 1 and contributes to the objective. So that's a very effective formulation. And again, with Biography, we could solve that within 1 minute. So here you see, for example, the results for one area, for one district, Ermera in Timor-Leste. So this is the current situation where only 63% of the households have access to a health facility within 5 kilometers. And the red dots are the households or the cluster of households that have no access, and the green dots are the households that are covered. And here you see when you can add 10 more facilities, then in fact the percentage of people that are covered rises to 81%. And this is just for one district, but of course we did it for the whole country, because if you restrict yourself to one district, that's not optimal. So we did it, of course, for the whole country. Okay, so here you see the optimality curve for the whole country. So there were now 139 primary healthcare facilities in the country. That leads to a coverage of 61%. And if you do just greenfields, so if you do it again, then with 139 facilities, you can in fact cover 99%, even more than that. Or to cover 61%, you can also do it with 16 facilities. Of course, it is uncapacitated, and so then it would be very big facilities. But here you see that you can win a lot. And also you can see what to do when you add more facilities to the 139 existing facilities. So you can imagine that this type of analysis and results are very useful for the World Bank because the World Bank is providing money to the government to improve the infrastructure. And so with these insights, they can spend their money much better. So here you see also discussions and meetings, workshops that they had together with the people from the government. We wrote a public expenditure report with the results in it, and now this is discussed and hopefully also implemented. So we would like to thank also the sponsors. So Kurobi is a sponsor of ABW, so we can use their solvers for free for these type of applications. Okay, so this was in Timor-Leste. That was the first project, but later we discovered that there were many other requests from the World Bank, from the World Health Organization, from Red Cross, from AMREF, and other NGOs with typically the same question, namely, we would like to maximize the accessibility to healthcare, and we would like to find optimal locations for hospitals, or for, in this case, in Vietnam, it was about stroke centers. And in Nepal, we did it also for COVID test centers. So this is Vietnam. And in Vietnam, in fact, stroke is cause #1 of deaths. So it is very important to improve the treatment. And one of the causes of that stroke is such an important cause is that when somebody has a stroke, it takes a lot of time to reach a stroke center. And the time to treatment is very important there. So also here was the question, how many and where to locate new stroke centers such that we can reduce the amount of time that's needed for patients to reach such a stroke center. So here you see the in the north of Vietnam, the locations of the existing stroke centers. Here, another part of the country. So the color also indicates the density of the population. So the greener or the yellow is high density. But you see that there are also regions where there is no stroke center, so it takes a lot of time for them. So that was the question. So again, had the same maximum covering location problem. We have population, and the population point is covered if it is within a certain distance, S, or time. And we have a maximum of P facilities that we can add. And we have potential locations for facilities. And we calculate the travel distance, and we solve for different values of S and the number of facilities that we can add. But now the difference with Timor-Leste is technically that, you know, this is a huge problem, because here we, we need, let us say, an discretization of at least 5 kilometers, but better is even 1 kilometer. So that leads to many potential locations, and also many population points. So in total, we had in this case 300,000 population points. Let's say households or clusters of households, and 350,000 potential locations for facilities. Maybe we could reduce this somewhat, but we decided not to do that, because this was also for us a benchmark, and to try to get methods that were able to get good solutions for these sizes of problems. So a MIP solver cannot be used anymore. It's really out of scope. So what we did is we developed a heuristic for this and compared it also to for those cases that we were able to solve it exactly. We compared the quality of the solution. We had to solve many problems and memory issues and speed issues. So already calculating the distance matrix between, let's say, the distance between the facilities and the locations of the facilities and the population points is already very time consuming. So you really have to do it very efficient. Okay, so what we used is a heuristic, and the heuristic is what's called GRASP. And I think there is no time to describe it in more detail, but it consists of first generating a greedy solution, and then using local search to improve it, and finally also path relinking to even further improve the solution. I think I skip the details because of time for that. So in fact, these were the results for Vietnam. Here you see, let's say, the facilities in orange that are both in a heuristic and in optimal solution. And so for a 5-kilometer grid, we could solve it also act. And we compared it to our heuristic. So the orange ones are both in the heuristic and in the optimal solution. The green ones are only in the heuristic, and the red ones are only in the optimal solution. So you see some differences, and the blue ones are the existing ones. You see some differences between, in fact, the red and the green one, but the differences are not that big. Yeah, Hossein.
Okay, thank you, Dick, for this great presentation. So I have a question about the challenges. You mentioned one about mainly the size of the problem, but have you faced any other serious challenges in modeling this practical problem or in implementing it?
Yeah. So now, first of all, the data is a challenge. For example, already getting the existing locations is not that easy, but finally we managed it. Then calculating the distance matrix. There's a huge matrix, and of course we can avoid. There's no need to calculate all distances in the matrix, but it's really huge. So you have to be very careful to do it in an efficient way there. And secondly, you know, there are also other challenges, like, for example, sometimes, you know, it is the facility that's in the results has to serve too many people. So we really need here a capacitated version, and still we don't have it. So that's the point now. So we have now a toolbox for this type of problems, but we are now extending it with many other characteristics that are needed in practice. For example, the capacitated version. But for example, also, we are also looking now at mobile clinics. So that is a different aspect in it. So we now encounter many different aspects, and we are extending the toolbox with these new characteristics.
Thank you.
Peter.
Yeah, I'm interested because, like, if you just do a grid location, some of those facilities won't be meaningful. They'll be in the middle of rivers or whatever. So is it necessary? Couldn't you just use, like, at least a certain density of population?
Yeah. No, that is so. In fact, what we did is we could do two things. So first, start with the grids, and then delete those potential locations that are too far from, let's say, population locations.
Yeah.
So that's one way. That's what we did. Or you can just start with the population locations.
Yeah,
that's
I wonder if that reduces the scale by a lot. The other thing I presume you did is
yeah. So it reduces, but finally, the set of potential locations was in this case around 350,000 locations.
Okay, so you'd already done that when you showed us the 250,000 number. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. But to be honest, for Vietnam, maybe 1 kilometer is too precise. Maybe 5 kilometers was already good, but we also did it to be able to really find an heuristic that's not only good for this case but also for the future cases. So it's painful for us, but we wanted to do that. And
I assume that households that are covered by existing things just don't appear in the problem, right? You wipe them out, or do you also keep? I know if you want to go green fields, you need to have them there, but not only in the expansion planning. You don't have to worry about them at all, right?
That's true. Yes, yeah. But often we also do the green fields just to show.
Exactly. How much you're paying for the bad design you already have. Yeah.
It's even also even sometimes that you say, well, we would like to keep, let's say, half of the centers.
Yeah.
And so we add then also that constraint that half of the centers should be.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay. Looking at the time. So in fact, for this case, we need in fact 2 hours to solve it. So it's really a huge case, but it appears that for those cases that we can compare with the exact optimal solution, the difference was at most 0.025%. So that's really a small gap. Okay. So we also added stuff about flood resilience because in the rain season there's a lot of floods there. So how to invest money to improve roads such that accessibility is still there. We did it also for Nepal, in Armenia, and now we also do it in Kenya. And we built a toolbox for it, and we are extending it, as I explained. Okay, so a few words about the Research Institute. So these were 2 applications of the Research Institute Analytics for the Better World. So the aim of this institute is to apply and to develop new analytics methods to have impact on the sustainable development goals. So it's founded by the University of Amsterdam and also by Hertog. Hertog is a company in the Netherlands. The first 2 letters stands for Operational Research, so that's a big operational research consultancy company. So that's the vision. Analytics is used a lot by companies now. We think that there's a lot of value also for NGOs to apply analytics for the Sustainable Development Goals and to improve the world a little bit. So these are the SDGs. So we have projects, we have research, but we also have an academy. So we also train people from NGOs and those countries like Timor-Leste in analytics to use it. And the goal is that we are not needed anymore in the future. So these are the partners that we are working with, AMREF, Red Cross, WHO, the World Bank, WFP, Ocean Cleanup, and working at this moment on these SDGs, as you see here below. I think I just go to finally to this application, because I'm also very enthusiastic about this. It's for the Ocean Cleanup. That's a Dutch not-for-profit organization who tries to remove the plastic from the oceans. So there are in fact 5 hotspots in the world where there is a high density of plastic. and they try to remove the plastic from the oceans with these type of systems. So these are 2 tugboats. This is a big net. So this is now 1 kilometer, really huge. And this is the retention zone. So the plastic is collected and goes to this retention zone. But still the plastic density is inhomogeneous, and those hotspots are really very big, 3 times the area of France. So the question is where to steer the system in such a way that you can collect the maximum amount of plastic as much as possible. So it's like a Pac-Man game. So we built optimization for them, and compared to what they did before, they can now collect 50 to 90% more plastic in the same amount of time. And here you see one of the optimal routes. So you see the time is running, and because of the current and the waves, the plastic is also changing. The colors indicate the colors are the densities of the plastic. So yellow and red is high density, green is lower density. And so here you see one of the optimal routes. And I can look at these pictures for hours. There's no time to show you more about it. And I did that together with a colleague from London Business School, Jean-Paul Villet, and his PhD students, Baisi Zong. Okay, so sorry for the, there's almost no time left for questions, but I hope that there's still some time for questions. So thank you very much for your attention.